Let's talk about Galaxy's Edge, shall we? How's it going? So I'm going to try something a little different and new this time. I'm doing a video. Seems like the thing to do. Because I want to give a report about everything that I saw at Galaxy's Edge, and what better way to do it than visually. I'm going to add in some pictures, maybe a little bit of video footage that I shot. It's going to be great. So let's get down to it. So last week, I was there for opening day of Galaxy's Edge at Disneyland. Galaxy's Edge is also known as Star Wars Land, and it opened up officially to the public on May 31st. That was the first day. The first 3 weeks that they're open, they are reservation only. It's a free reservation. You had to make online ahead of time. I somehow, thankfully, got a reservation for opening day. They broke up the days to time slots as well. So if you had a reservation, like I did for May 31st, my time slot was from 8 p.m. to midnight. There were different slots during the day. It was all spaced out, so the land wouldn't be too crowded at any one time. And I think it worked out perfectly. My biggest fear was I had a reservation for Galaxy's Edge, but would I be able to get into the park? Because of all of the hype, of all of the attention that's being paid to Disneyland, and that was the opening day, was it just going to be swamped with people trying to get in, even though they didn't have a reservation, thinking they could talk their way past all of the cast members that were working there? Well, as it turned out, I went down there really early in the day. That way, too bad, I would have to spend the day at Disneyland before leading up to 8 o'clock when I got into Galaxy's Edge. So when I got down there, there was no line for the parking garage. Like, I drove right up to the booth, and I thought, this was odd. Are they having people park in a different place? I wasn't quite sure what was going on. So I parked, got onto the tram, made it over to the park. There wasn't really a big crowd waiting to get in, which for me was a good sign, because I didn't want it to be super, super crowded. Well, as it turns out, after I got into the park, it was pretty tame. It was not what you would expect for that late in May, almost June. I was walking right on rides. The longest I ever waited in a line was 20 minutes for Big Thunder Mountain. So I think maybe the reservations scared people off. Plus, it was the end of the week. It was a Friday, and I think it might have been the last day of school for a lot of local schools for people that would normally be going. So those two things paired up made for a perfect day in the park. I mean, I was walking through different areas, and like normally you expect it to be elbow to elbow, but there was like barely any people there. It was fantastic. I walked on the Haunted Mansion. How often does that happen? I walked on Pirates of the Caribbean. I went on Peter Pan. The line was 15 minutes, and if you've ever been on Peter Pan before, you know the line's never under a half hour or 45 minutes. So it was a great day to spend in the park. The weather was perfect. It wasn't too hot. It wasn't too cold. I had a really good time leading up to Galaxy's Edge at 8 p.m. Now, the way the reservations worked, 2 hours before your time slot, which was 6 p.m. for me, you go and pick up a wristband over in Tomorrowland. They give you your wristband. They tell you which entrance you're going to go in. Now, there are 3 different entrances to Galaxy's Edge, and they were assigning different entrances for different times. And then you're ready to go. You have your wristband. You can do whatever until it's time. I had gone over in that area earlier in the day, and I talked to one of the cast members, and they said, yeah, they're not letting people in any little tiny bit early. So there's really no reason to line up beforehand because you're just going to be standing there. She said, since yours is for 8 o'clock, show up at 8:05 and you could probably walk right in. Well, that didn't happen. I showed up at 7:30, 7:40 because I was too excited. I wanted to get in. And kind of being in the crowd there on opening day was half the reason I went on opening day. It's the excitement, it's elbow to elbow at that point, but who cares? It was a lot of fun. And so, yeah, we're all anxious to get in, leading up to when the time comes. And they're herding us in over by the Hungry Bear restaurant. If you're familiar at all with Critter Country and that side of the park, that's where one of the entrances in. The other two are behind Big Thunder Mountain. So we all start moving in, and we move up 100 feet, and then it stops again, and we have to wait. And then 8 o'clock rolls around, and it's time. So everybody starts filing in, and you're just going by plants and trees and bushes, and you're not really seeing anything yet. And you come around a corner, and there is a full-size X-Wing and a full-size A-Wing sitting there. And it's just like all the chills went up my spine, and I got emotional. It's like that's the point where I started tearing up. It was, being a lifelong Star Wars fan and a lifelong Disneyland fan, this is a marriage that is perfect for me. And to see this in real life, it was incredible. I mean, I seriously got teared up. I'm not afraid to say that. It was very emotional, and to experience that with other people that were just as excited as me, it was fantastic. So from there, you're pretty much free to go wherever you want in the land. Now, one of the things I definitely wanted to do was build my own lightsaber. So there's a shop called Savi's Workshop, and you get to construct your own lightsaber. And it's kind of similar to the wand ceremony at Harry Potter Land over at Universal Studios. It's a combination of build your own lightsaber, a little bit of a show, and of course a shop. So reservations filled up fast for that, is what I was starting to hear. So that's the first thing I did. I went over there and I got in line to get a reservation, because not only did our time only last till midnight, but the park closes at midnight, so it's not like they can let you hang out any extra time. I'm glad I did this. And if you're planning on going to Galaxy's Edge and building a lightsaber, the first thing you want to do when you get into the land is line up to make a reservation for building a lightsaber. I made the reservation around 8:30. They said to come back at 9:45. When I did come back at 9:45, they said, come back around 10:15. Came back at 10:15. They're like, come back at 11. So it was opening day. Things weren't going as smoothly as possible. Some of the build times were taking longer, so they had to push back other things. Thankfully, I did get in, but I'll get to that later. So I made my reservation, and then I was free to do whatever I wanted to. One of the advantages of going by myself, because I just went solo, no pun intended, was that I basically could maneuver wherever. And with the Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run ride, I could take advantage of the single rider line. Do that. It's if you want to get on the ride fast, do the single rider line. It just takes you through a bunch of nondescript hallways, all in character, but it takes you kind of to the back way, up to a set of stairs, and basically right before you board into the Millennium Falcon. Now, you do skip the line. You do miss some of the animatronics, some of the displays, which I hear are fantastic. I not see those because I just went through the single rider line. When I go back in a few weeks, I'm probably going to be waiting in the line just so I can get the experience of everything. But I wanted to make sure I could get as much done in my 4-hour time slot as I possibly could. So you go through the single rider line, you get up to a certain point, and 6 people ride at a time. So you're in the cockpit on the Millennium Falcon. There are 2 pilots in the front. Next are 2 gunners, and then 2 engineers. So everybody has an assigned station inside the Millennium Falcon. This is an interactive ride. It's not just like a Star Tours ride simulator. You actually have jobs to do while you are riding this ride. The pilots naturally pilot the ship. One pilot controls the left and right, one controls the up and down. The gunners are just that. They're gunning. There's no aiming involved. You just push the button to shoot at the TIE fighters that are coming at you. The engineering, as boring as that sounds, is actually one of the more fun stations in this ride, because you actually have to keep the ship flying. As you crash into things or as ships shoot at you, you have to repair different things. And you have a control screen right next to you, and you have to be pushing buttons. The downside is that you're pushing buttons and trying to watch the screen at the same time, so it does take away a little bit, but it's still a lot of fun. Some people were saying it was a little bit stressful to actually have to do these jobs while you're riding the ride, but it just adds to the overall atmosphere of it. It's fantastic. I did engineering and I did pilot. I managed to make it on the ride twice. Thank you, single rider. And it's next level. It's probably my favorite ride in the park right now. And it's not just because of the ride, it's because of everything. Like when you're waiting in line for the ride, you are in the area of the Millennium Falcon where you have the holo chess table, you have another control panel, and as you look around, you see different things. You see the blast helmet and trainer that Luke is using in the Millennium Falcon when they're trying to go to Alderaan. You see the hallway where Han Solo and Princess Leia first kissed in The Empire Strikes Back. It's like you are on board the Millennium Falcon, and it's breathtaking. I mean, it is, for any Star Wars fan to actually be in the life-size area of this ship is just incredible. And so from there, your group is called, and you're taken to the cockpit of the Millennium Falcon, and you walk through a little bit of the rest of the ship, which is really cool. And when you get up there, you all strap in, and basically the screen is already, it's already projecting what it looks like outside. And what is very cool is if it's daylight outside, it's daylight outside in the ride. If it's night outside, it's night outside in the ride. So it changes as the time of day changes, which is really cool. The entire time I walked around Galaxy's Edge, the thing that kept playing in my mind was the line from Jurassic Park where John Hammond says, "I spared no expense." I mean, they really didn't. They spared no expense, and there's a lot of attention to detail. There is a food area, Ronto Roasters, where they have a giant full-size pod racing engine over a spit, roasting pretend food with a EV-99 droid turning the spit. This is space that could be used for several tables. It could be used for, a small shop. It's a good size display, but it is there for adding to the land, adding to the experience. And that's what this is all about. I mean, you feel like you are on another planet. And adding to that, you don't feel like you're at Disneyland anymore. The way the land is constructed is you can't see outside of it. You don't hear the train going by. You can't see the Matterhorn or hear the Mark Twain go by. So they really did do a really good job of isolating you from the rest of the park. So after I did the Millennium Falcon the first time, I wandered around a little bit more, in and out some of the shops. I went into the droid building area, which is a lot of fun. I didn't build a droid, but I could see there's conveyor belts with different pieces of droids, and basically you're scavenging the pieces to construct your own droid, which is about, it's about the size of a coffee maker as they're describing it. And it is a remote control droid, and it interacts with other things around in the land. And that's one of the really cool things about Galaxy's Edge is there are a lot of interactive things, both with your droid if you purchase one, and with the Disneyland app. The Play Disney app that you can use in other parts of the park becomes a data pad. And what you can do is, if you have it Bluetooth enabled, is to operate different control panels around the land. And it's kind of like you're hacking in, and you choose whether you're hacking for the Resistance or you're hacking for the First Order. It gives you something to do while you're waiting in line. It adds an extra 21st century interactiveness to the land. It's a lot of fun. I mean, there are so many things you can do in this land. Yes, at this point there is only one attraction open, But with the shops, with the build your own lightsaber, build your own droid, and all of that, it's really a lot you can do. And it's really phenomenal. So I didn't try any of the food. And my logic was I only had 4 hours in there, so I didn't want to spend time in line for food. I didn't try the blue or green milk, although I heard a lot of people saying it was very sweet. Plus, you want to always leave something for next time. The one thing I did want to try and get into, but I couldn't, it was the longest line in the land, and that was the cantina. The problem with that is that it's not a ride, so you're not going in there, riding the ride, getting off, and leaving. You can be in there for as long as you want. So there was always a long line, and it was just contingent on other people leaving. So I felt my time was better spent other places. So that's another thing that next time I'll be hitting that up. So they also have themed gift shops. There's a section of the land that is definitely leaning towards the First Order, and there's a section that leans towards the Resistance. And those shops have in-land, in-character items for you to purchase. And that was another thing. Galaxy's Edge is in character. It is fully immersive. You can't buy things that say Disneyland or Galaxy's Edge in the land. You can buy them through the rest of the park, but you can't buy them at the land. You can buy in-character things. You can buy Jedi robes. You can buy First Order officer hats, First Order jackets, Resistance patches, and things like that. But you can't buy Disneyland items. And all of the cast members are in character. They are to varying degrees, of course, and they really get into it. You know, the Resistance people are trying to hide from the First Order. There was a point when I was in line for reservations for the Build Your Own Lightsaber, and the two guys ahead of me asked a cast member that walked by if they took the annual pass discount there, and she looked at him and said, I don't know what that is. And they were like, you know, the annual pass, Disneyland annual pass. She looked at him and is that the little plastic card with the round-eared mouse-like character on it? And they gave her a look like, yeah? And she's like, no, the Savi doesn't accept that in the workshop. And she walks away. And these guys had these blank, confused look on their face. And I had to tell them, everybody in land is in character. So they don't know what Disneyland is. They don't know what a Disneyland annual pass is. So it was really kind of one of those, they really got into it and really had a lot of fun with it. Now, let's get back to building your own lightsaber. There it is. This was so much fun. So I got back in time for my reservation, and we go in. The one of the gatherers comes out of the building and says, "Please come inside before this First Order season." Ushers us inside, kind of secretly and looking around, and we all go to a workbench. And they assign us a workbench, and so the lead gatherer is like, "Pardon me for the hurry in getting you inside. The First Order is all about, and we don't want them discovering what we're doing." So the whole guise is that it is a lightsaber building workshop disguised as a junk dealer. Well, I'm going to say at this point, if you don't want to know any more about the build your own lightsaber, you might want to stop now, because I'm going to talk about it, not in great detail, but I'm going to talk about kind of the ins and outs of what happens in it. So if you'd rather wait and be surprised, then I'd say come back and watch this video after you go to Galaxy's Edge. So when you get to your station, they start talking about the history of lightsabers and kind of how they were weapons of old used by the Jedi, and they start talking about which Jedi used which one, and the light and the dark side, and how this is very important to keep the history going, to put more lightsabers out there in the hands of potential Force users. And it's really cool. And so before you go in, you have to choose one of 4 different paths. There is peace and justice, safety and security, power and control, and nature and element. And from these, you get different pieces to build your lightsaber from. Then you get to choose your kyber crystal. And this will determine what color your lightsaber is. Your choices are blue, purple, green, and red. And then from there, you basically start constructing. And the cool thing about it is, like, these things are pretty hefty, and you have about, I'd say, like 12 different pieces to choose from, and it's really cool. You really do get to customize and build your own lightsaber. And it has a blade. You can hear that it activates a blade that is removable, and whichever kyber crystal you choose, it will light up that color. Like, I chose blue, so if I were to take the kyber crystal that is in this one out and put in a different color, it would then change the color of my lightsaber. Which is just, it's just really awesome. I mean, they really have done a fantastic job with this. And, it was late at night. There was only one kid in the group that was in there. And the rest of us were, adults, 30, 40-something adults. And we were all giddy children. I mean, like, we're building our own lightsaber. And we walked out of there with sabers held high and giant smiles on our faces. And the cool thing is, too, they give you a carrying case. So you're not just walking around the park with the lightsaber. They give you a carrying case to sling it in. Now, that was another interesting thing. My thought from the beginning was, how are they going to prevent lightsaber battles happening in Frontierland? People are going to buy these lightsabers and then walk around the park with them for the rest of the day. A lightsaber battle is naturally going to happen. So as we all walked out of the workshop with our lightsabers, the first thing a bunch of cast members said to us was like, "Oh, you better put those away before the First Order sees them." And we're like, "Oh, yeah, okay." So we put them in our sheaths and walk around. So I walked over kind of like to an area where there weren't a lot of people, and I pulled it out again and turned it on. Another cast member walks by and says, "You better put that away before the First Order sees you." So it's a very Disney way of saying, don't play with your lightsaber in the park, where they are kind of on top of you. And it shouldn't surprise me that there was somebody watching in the entire time, but I felt like this is a really cool Disney way of saying, put it away. So, I did get a photograph of me and the lightsaber in front of the Millennium Falcon. Of course, how could you not? And so you are able to take it out at points, but you're not going to be able to walk around and swing away. So at this point, like, I had my lightsaber. I rode the Millennium Falcon twice, went in and out most of the shops, and it was pushing midnight. So, and I was tired. I mean, I got into the park at 11 a.m., walking around the park all day. I was still on an adrenaline high for being in Galaxy's Edge, but it really, I started to feel a little bit tired. So I started making my way to the front of the park at right around midnight. And the first thing I was thinking about as I was leaving is, when can I get back here? When can I go again? It was that incredible. I mean, the land is in character. It's everything I imagined. It's actually beyond everything I had imagined it would be. It was so much fun. I can't recommend it enough. It's going to be a madhouse once they open it up beyond reservations. I mean, I can only imagine how crowded it's going to be. We'll see. There's talk of them doing kind of a fast pass to get into the land, which I think would be good, to kind of crowd control a little bit. But we'll see how it all plays out. But I can't recommend it enough. If you're thinking about only going once, I would say wait until Rise of the Resistance. The second main attraction in the land is open, which is supposed to be later this year. I'm sure that one's going to be incredible as well. But yeah, it is. I can go on for hours and hours about it, but I'm going to wrap it up there and let that be the trip report for Galaxy's Edge opening day. Yeah, man, it was great. Anyways, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and may the Force be with you.